Okay. Testing one. Should be fine. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to one and all of you, boys and girls as well. Thank you very much for being with us this morning on this very, very sad occasion to bid farewell to our dearest Chris Moodley, the late Chris Moodley, who passed on yesterday in the early hours of the morning after, I must say, a very, very short illness. It is indeed heartwarming to see many of his friends and family, colleagues, and other acquaintances here with us this morning. I'm sure more people will make their way through as the morning progresses. But thank you again for being here with us this morning on this indeed very, very sad occasion. And so soon after the passing of Tyrone and Fiona's late granddad, Chris's late father in law, we were here not so long ago. And that to me is scary. I was standing in this very, very position just a few months ago, saying farewell to another great gentleman. And I say another great gentleman. We have before us here, laying before us, a great man indeed, a true friend, relative, father, grandfather, and I've known him for many years, which I'll chat about later. But it's too soon to be standing in the same position, doing the exact same thing, just a few months on. And it must be still raw in the hearts of many people sitting here in front of us. That they haven't even had time to grieve the loss of one family member, and we now have to say farewell to another. But life is such, the cycle of life is such that we cannot dictate what comes next, or when it comes, or how soon these tragedies strike us. So we must be brave and be strong and take the time to grieve, but at the same time, take the time to reflect, celebrate the life of a loved one, celebrate the time that we had with them, and acknowledge the life that they've lived rather than merely focusing on the death that has befallen us. We need to take stock of a life well spent. And for Chris, Mr. Moodley, as most people knew him, it was indeed a life well spent, a full life, a just life, a very honest life. And he was a perfect gentleman. So we need to reflect on that and take strength from that and take a leaf out of his book. And I'm sure no matter how old or how young anyone is in this audience or people that may come afterwards, somewhere along the line, there's something that we've learned from being in contact with him, from the time that we spent with him, whether it was decades, minutes, months, or weeks. He always had something to impart. And therefore, I'd like to say a very big thank you again to each and every one of you for being here this morning, to say farewell to a true gentleman and a true friend, to say farewell to Chris. We have a few speakers this morning. And firstly, we have a speaker from the New Horizons Senior Citizens Club, of which Chris has been a member for maybe 5 years or so. I stand corrected. But ever since he moved to Pietermaritzburg, he found a group that he could associate with and made lots of friends. He often spoke very fondly of the senior citizens group that he had joined and become a member of, and spoke of his activities and travels with them. And I think it's fitting that somebody from the club is here to speak on his behalf this morning. And I'd like to say welcome. And thank you very much for delivering a message on behalf of your club. We have a guest speaker from New Horizons Senior Citizens Club. Thank you.
Good day, family and friends. My name is Sushi Naidu, and I am a member of the New Horizon Senior Citizen Club, of which the late Chris Moodley was a member. On behalf of the New Horizon Senior Citizen Club, it is with sadness and grief that I would like to pay tribute to a dear friend, a loving dad and granddad, a brother, and a relative. The late Christopher Moodley, fondly known as Chris, joined the New Horizon Senior Citizens Club in 2017 after retiring from his career as an educator. The New Horizon Senior Citizens Club is a social club for, for seniors that caters for many social activities. Late Chris engaged in many of the social activities with a lot of zest and enthusiasm and thoroughly enjoyed his day. During one of our morning sessions, he surprisingly demonstrated one of his mean yoga moves, which he obtained off the internet. So he really surprised us. You know, he's got this very cool and calm and collective demeanor. So, yeah, that was a big surprise. The late Chris is remembered for his polite, cool, calm, humble, and collective demeanor. He also possessed an extremely sharp intellect. From our little conversations with him, he always shared experiences of his family, and he always spoke about his late wife, Rena, whom he pined for very dearly. The birth of his grandson, Tyler, brought a tremendous amount of joy and happiness to him and his family. It is with sadness that the late Chris was consumed by an illness in such a short space of time. Regretfully, we did not get to spend time with him during his last moments due to the nature of his illness. But here we are today to bid farewell to a dear friend, a loving dad and granddad, a brother, uncle, and relative. The memories of Chris will always be treasured. To the late Chris's family, his daughter Fiona, son Tyron, their spouses, and grandson Tyler, may you find comfort, courage, and peace, knowing Dad is now resting well. May God be your guidance. Life is pleasant, but death is peaceful. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Those were very kind words and befitting of the gentleman that lays here before us. I'm quite sure, having known Chris for almost 3 decades, I'm most certain that any friends that he made within your organization would be friends for life, and you will treasure him for as long as he can be remembered. And I'm quite sure also when you said that he took part in your club's activities with zest and enthusiasm, I know exactly what you're talking about. If he got involved in something, he never did it half heartedly. With Chris, there were no half measures. He was either all in or all out. And I'm sure you'll agree with me. He never got involved in something that he was not interested in. So the fact that he got interested in your organization means that you guys mean a lot, because I've known him as an educator, I've known him as a friend, and in the latter years as part of an extended family. And Chris was what you saw, was what you got. So if he took time to spend with you or anyone close to you, that time was precious to him. It meant a lot. And as I said, with no half measures. But to elaborate on that further, we have messages from Tyron and Fiona that will be delivered by Sahil. Sahil being Chris's nephew, for those of you that are not familiar. Sahil, if you'll please do us the honor.
Prem Namaste, dearest family and friends. As Uncle Sean said, I am Sahil Bugwandin, nephew of the late Mr. Chris Moodley, or as I most lovingly knew him, Chris Puppa. Today I will be delivering messages on behalf of his children, Tyron and Fiona. This first message comes from Fiona. No one was like my dad. He was an inspiration, a motivation, a steadfast rock in all of our lives. His strength wasn't flashy or in your face. He was a quiet, unassuming man who just went about with what he needed to do. It was beneath the surface that his true courage and determination lay. This was most evident in how he put people first: his family, his friends, his colleagues, his community were always cared for, loved, and protected. Dad always had time for you, to listen to you, to share his stories, to catch up on the latest sporting events, or just to share his latest jokes. Although retired for many years, his ex-students to this day still speak of Dad with such fondness. They'd say, "Your dad was my favorite teacher. What a good man your dad was. What a wonderful leader." He was a true people's person with the biggest heart and the biggest smile. It is very difficult to imagine my life without you, Dad, but I would just like to say thank you for all that you were, all that you taught us to be, and all that you inspired us to become. I will miss you more than anyone will ever know, but will always hold onto our precious memories. Go in peace, my wonderful dad. I will love you forever till we meet again. This next message comes from Tyron. My dad always fancied himself as a good storyteller. His use of expression as he articulated events from the different stages in his life always kept his audience captivated. Listening to these many different stories makes one realize that this man has had so many different chapters in his life and that he was such a versatile individual. From being a teacher and a sports coach for majority of his professional career, to taking bold steps in building his very own printing business, and later on exhibiting his carpentry skills. The foundation that Dad maintained throughout these chapters was his love and dedication for his family, friends, and community. Anyone who crossed paths with my dad took a liking to him. That friendly smile, accompanied by warm words of wisdom and encouragement, resulted in him making an impact in the lives of so many people, especially his immediate family. He loved his dear Rena until the very end. He silently sacrificed any luxuries and desires just so that he could do as much as he could for his family. That's the type of man my dad was, always trying to uplift those around him. Thank you, Dad, for being an amazing parent and a fantastic role model. Thank you for all the sacrifices that you have made so that I could reach for the stars. You have worked hard and served everyone well. It's now time for your innings to come to an end. 76, not out forever. I love you, Dad. Thank you.
Thank you, Sahil. Those words from both Fiona and Tyron really jerked at some heartstrings because I know exactly what the two of you meant in those short but very, very encapsulating messages. On a day like this, we only have time to say a few words, but within those lines, I can read a whole lifetime. And I shared that with you, with your dad, and for that, I will be eternally grateful. So, to the two of you, please note that those words that you've put down on paper and that Sahil so eloquently delivered mean an absolute lifetime of memories and fondness. And I hear exactly what you're trying to say, and we will speak more to that uh, a bit later. But thank you again. And I hope that with time will come comfort. And I think also we must remember that we don't have to try to live without someone just because they're gone. They will forever be etched in our memories. And Chris is one of those people that will never be forgotten. Whether it be friends, colleagues, family members, or anyone that he came into contact with, he made an indelible mark on them, and that will live on forever. To speak more on behalf of Chris's family and his extended family, I'd like to call Kushila, who'll speak on behalf of the rest of the family. Thank you.
Prem Namaste, family and friends. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kushila, and I'm Chris's youngest sister-in-law. For those of you who know me as Cappy, that was named by Chris all those years ago. 44 years ago, we had the privilege of meeting Chris and welcoming him into our family. From day one, Chris adopted us as his sister and brothers, treating us with siblings love always. Always smiling, always cheerful, and always welcoming us into his home. If anyone knows Chris, they know how much he loved and adored our sister, Rena. Since they married in 1979, his entire world revolved around her. Our family bond was further strengthened with the arrival of our adorable niece and nephew, Fiona and Tyron. After the untimely passing of our beloved sister Rena, Chris lost his soulmate, and clearly the loss impacted him greatly. But in true Chris style, he persevered, trying to keep busy and active, but never losing sight of the one thing he held so dear, family. And of course, the sparkle in his eyes daily were the presence of adorable Tyler, who brought such immense joy and light to Chris. Chris's doors in Pietermaritzburg were always open to us, and he never forgot to remind us, please come and visit. He never missed a birthday or an anniversary, and he was always so super proud of everyone's achievements, especially academic. He flew all our flags very high. As the now elder in our family, we have lost a wonderful brother-in-law, a genuine friend, and most of all, an incredibly generous human being. Chris, we love you lots, and most certainly we are going to miss that constant smiling face, that welcoming grin, and your thoughtful, caring ways. Please rest in peace, dear Chris, knowing that we have Tyron and Chantal, Fiona and Kieran, and darling Tyler in the palm of our hands. We will take care of your precious gems with all that we have. To quote Tyler, my Aja is gone in the sky to be with Big Aja, our dearest Daji. Rest well, dear Chris. We love you lots. Namaste.
Thank you, Kushila. Thank you for those warm words and bringing back some fond memories again. I'd like to, I haven't introduced myself, by the way. Sorry for being so rude. Chris and I were first friends before we became family. And in 1995, when I first arrived in Howick, being posted to Howick Secondary School, where Chris was already an established educator, he was one of the first people that I encountered when I walked into the school. And I mean that literally. When I walked into the school on that first Monday morning, he was part of the management team of the school. And together with a few other colleagues of his, he was one of the first people that I encountered, together with the school principal. And from that day forward, and I say from that day forward, Chris and I were friends forever. It seems like a whole lifetime has passed that he and I have been friends. And I feel so sad to say that my plan for this morning was to drive down to Pietermaritzburg, visit Chris for a short while, and then go on to Durban to visit another relative who is also seriously ill. And unfortunately, I got to visit Chris, but under the wrong circumstances. But here we are. And I have to speak of the time that we had together and the memories that we will forever have together. So in 1995, we met as colleagues, and Chris was a seasoned educator by then. He had studied in Durban. He had spent time away from home, living with families while studying, boarding in the Durban area. And then after qualifying, moved up to the Midlands and taught at first in Lidgerton, I think, at the much older school that came before all the modern schools that we have today. And from the time we met, Chris and I would speak fondly to each other because we had this sort of common thread that ran through our careers, where we both started in similar places and in similar fashion, having boarded in places or lived in a hostel and so on. And we had a lot in common. But strangely enough, we had so much in common, but there was such a huge gap in our ages. Chris, having passed on now at age 76, was more than 20 years older than I at the time. But we had so much in common. And I found that very, very strange. But then I realized something. I realized very soon after meeting him that I saw a huge amount of Chris's character, a huge amount in him that my father was. And they were such similar characters. And I draw that analogy because Chris was a teacher of accounting. My father was an accounts clerk for almost 40 years. They shared the same train of thought. They had the same ideologies. They had the same view towards their families, what they could do with as little as they had. And they had the same priorities. And I think for that, first and foremost, he had earned my utmost respect for him as a gentleman, as an educator, as a human being, as who he was. And he wore his heart on his sleeve as well. He never made any bones about who he was. He never ever tried to sugarcoat anything. If he was giving me advice, he would tell me exactly like it was. And there's a whole lot of people in this room here that would bear me out on that. And Chris would call it like it was, because he often said, if you can't face up to the reality of something, then it is not reality, because you're trying to make it into something that it's not. And that's how he lived. He lived by true and just rules, and he was an absolutely straight arrow in my book. As an educator, he was surrounded by colleagues that cherished him, grew to love him over the years, and really enjoyed teaching with him. And he certainly made a mark in this community where thousands of children went through Chris's classrooms or through the library at Howick Secondary, and where he imparted knowledge, life skills, general advice, pointing them in the right direction and making sure that they didn't step out of line and that they became better people for it. And as Tyron and Fiona alluded to in their messages, he gave up a lot and he sacrificed a lot and he imparted a lot to make sure that other people that came and went through him and lived long after him became better people and were upstanding members of community. And I'm quite sure you've often heard him speak about students of his that have become doctors and lawyers and surgeons, and even those that have become mechanics and carpenters and electricians, and those of them that have just gone on to have good family lives. So whether it was professional or just sharing good common values, Chris was there to teach people how to be good people, because Chris was good people. And that, if that is the one thing that anyone who associated with him takes away from this day or from the past 76 years, then you've certainly become the richer for it. Anyone that he came into contact with was the better for it. I got to know him really well because of his interest in sport. That was our first bond, I think, because we taught different subjects at school, but Chris was in charge of the cricket program at school. And the youngsters would love the time that he would spend with them, coaching them on the cricket field with the most appalling resources, I must say. We had sometimes one cricket bat and a used cricket ball and one set of pads in a kit bag, and Chris would turn that into a training session. I don't know how he did it. But we grew from strength to strength. We got sponsorships. We worked together, approached MTN, got kids sponsored to the school, convinced the principal to give us more time out on the field, convinced them to pay for transport to go to inter-school cricket matches. And then Tyron, who was growing up at the time, also got interested in cricket. And Chris's love for the sport was spurred on even further because his family to him was one of the greatest things ever. And of all his achievements, I think he saw that as the pinnacle of his achievements. Raising the two of you and spending a long time being married to your mom. And God rest her soul, we will never forget the time that they spent together. And so we got involved at that level in school and then got to know each other on a professional level as well. And we coached cricket together. And before I knew it, Chris was the kind of person that would get you to do something without you even knowing it. He would actually convince you to do something and you wouldn't know that he did it. And this is what I'm talking about. I'd been there a few years with him, since 95, and I think it was just around 1999 that one day I found myself standing in front of all these boys at school and coaching them. I had had no coaching background whatsoever. I had no formal training with cricket coaching, nothing whatsoever. And here I had two cricket teams, an under 15 side and an under 19 side, or a senior school side, that I was busy coaching. And Chris had suddenly taken a step backwards. He was standing in the background, just observing, making sure that everything was under control, making sure that you towed the line. And I can see pupils at the back of the hall here smiling because you know exactly what I'm talking about. And that is evident. That is evidence that you knew exactly what I'm talking about, right? And suddenly I found myself thrust into the limelight, taking over a role that he had carried for many years. And he said, no, it's your turn. You go ahead and you do it. And I will make sure if you need advice, I'm always here for you. And that's what happened. And we went again from strength to strength. And we had many a school trip to other schools where I could see the amount of respect the other educators had for him from schools that we visited, not only schools that he had taught at. And back then, when the schools were from separate education departments, to earn the respect of colleagues outside of your education department, where they almost came from different worlds, that said a lot about him as a character, where he broke boundaries and he went across racial lines to get to know people and to associate with people on a different level. And he had earned the respect of his peers. And wherever you went, in the years that followed, everyone would say, oh, you're here with your cricket team today. Where's Mr. Moodley? You know? But that was a good thing. That was a good thing. You knew you were in good hands because you knew you were in the company of people that had gone through this process with him. And he had now handed over the baton to you and said, you take the lead and run with it. Then at a school level, he had a lot of senior educators with him that really worked well together with him on a management team. And it was very trying times. There was a huge transition in education at the time, and there was a lot of rebellion going on. There was a lot of new blood coming into the profession. And Chris at that time didn't enjoy that too much because he could see that the tide was changing. But true to his spirit, he didn't go against it. he sort of rolled with the punches. And he got to know the new order. He got to know the new way of thinking, and he embraced it rather than oppose it. And then the younger teachers became more familiar with him as well. And rather than be on the other side of the fence, Chris was always there to give advice to both sides. He was the calming person in the room whenever there was anything that was, going off on a tangent or going in the wrong direction. And therefore, he got to know both young and old colleagues alike. And I think by the time he retired from school, right from the lowest grade of learner, which at that time we used to still say standard 5, from pupils at that level to his matric pupils who he taught accounting to, and from junior educators, from governing body paid educators, right through to the school principal and his management team. He was held in high regard, and he was held with great esteem. He had the respect of all the people that he was surrounded by. And that is because of the way he conducted himself and the way he lived his life and the way he held good, old-fashioned, old-school values true to his heart. And he never, ever veered from that. And therefore, you see family members before you, and you've heard family members speak before about the character that he was and what he meant to them. He genuinely put his best foot forward to promote the lives and the well-being of other people before his. He was unselfish. He took part in tasks tirelessly and selflessly and made sure that everything ran smoothly, and sometimes, albeit while he was in the background. You never saw him that much. You never heard him that much, but he had a way of keeping things going and keeping things coordinated. And for that, for his meticulous way of living, for his meticulous way of working, I will forever be grateful. Fortunately, Chris was able to take early retirement from education. At that time, there was a transition from the House of Delegates, handing over to the new National Department of Education. And Chris and a few of his colleagues were able to retire age 55 plus, rather than waiting another 10 years for when they had to wait for their pension to grow and so on. So they were given an opportunity and what we called back then a golden handshake, an enhanced pension package to retire early and see through the rest of their retirement fruitfully and enjoy their retirement. And they had worked really hard because those teachers, those educators that came before us, that worked up until 1998 and that period, had been through a lot of struggle where schools were state aided, schools were not funded by the government, the education department was split into 3 sectors, and they educated people to the highest level in this country against all odds, in the face of adversity. They educated people that have gone on to become great individuals, great people in this country, and even abroad. So I take my hat off to them, and there may be a few of you sitting in this room today. I really take my hat off to you if you were teaching during that time and managed to deliver what you did with limited resources, limited time, and meager salaries as well. And how these people made it through life with those conditions is an absolute credit to them. And Chris is one of those people that we need to take a bow, and say, well done, thank you, and for everything that you have done in your career, in your difficult career. We really thank you. So that's something that's really important. And then going into retirement, Chris was very energetic. He was still very enthusiastic. He woke up every day waiting to face a new challenge. And he got involved shortly after that in printing. He set up his own print shop. He was always interested in audiovisual and visual arts because that was part of his career. He was the audiovisual go-to guy in school. He ran the library and he ran the media center and things like that. So he was one of the first people also that introduced me to a common PC, which we take for granted nowadays. Back in the day, I think in 1995, buying a 386 PC was like, whoa, you stepped into a new realm now. You had a keyboard in front of you and you had color graphics on a screen. And before that, all you had was a typewriter and a Duplo machine, right? That you were churning out worksheets with. And Uncle Johnny sitting in front of me here will bear me out on that. You know all about what I'm talking about. And Chris was one of the first people that said, no, we're going to go forward and we're going to buy computers and start doing desktop graphic design and stuff like that. And it sounds like Greek to a lot of people. But what he did was he broke a barrier where people said that people over the age of 50 should not be sitting in front of a computer. They should be sitting behind a table somewhere and writing with a pen and paper and, putting things in a journal. Chris wasn't that kind of person. Chris was ready for the next thing. And with the help of a dear friend, Greg, he got really involved in printing. And Greg may be here with us today. I hope he is. And the three of us share a common bond. And that common bond is that we were all interested in the same industry. And Greg was the one that led the way. But Chris followed, and Chris took knowledge from him and set up this print shop. And then Chris and I used to work after school and on weekends, and Tyron was potting around as well. And we did some fantastic things, I think. We did some wonderful things when we thought it wasn't otherwise possible. And Chris got really involved in his work. So he never stopped working when he retired. He kept himself occupied and gainfully occupied, I must add, and profitably occupied as well. And he made a lot of new friends outside of his teaching career. He now met people in industry where they were running businesses, and having a commerce background himself, he understood them. So the transition was smooth. He understood how to deal with business people on another level outside of school. And they became great friends of his. They became great long-standing customers of his. And he ran a good business. And by working with him, he taught me a hell of a lot. And together, we worked on projects, sometimes independently of each other as well, but we certainly achieved a lot in a short space of time. And during all this, Chris's love of sport, as Fiona and Tyron mentioned in their messages, never dwindled, never waned. I must say this, he is a staunch Manchester United supporter and will be forever. And that's passed on to all of us as well, Tyron. That's rubbed off. He loved cricket, as I mentioned earlier. He would love watching series between our Proteas and the Aussies and, goading the Aussies all the time, like we all do. But he always loved a challenge. He never saw a winner and a loser. He always saw the sport as the greater game. He always believed that the sport was bigger than all of us. And he taught us to play it with respect. He taught us to watch it with respect. And he taught us to criticize with respect as well. There's a time and a place for everything. Chris was never free of criticism. And people never stopped criticizing us either for what we held as ideology, for what we held as the way we lived and what we thought on a day-to-day basis, but with respect. So one of the key things about the man in front of us is respect. And if we can all live our lives with the utmost respect for people young and old, rich and poor, people that are well and people that are ill, people that are frail and people that are strong, if we can teach each other respect and respect each other on any level, that is the motto by which he lived. He showed the utmost respect for everyone and everything. And he always believed that there was a time and a place for everything. And he would tell you so as well. If you were going off the track and he felt that this was not the time to feel a certain way or behave a certain way, he would very quietly put you back in your lane and keep you in your lane without saying one harsh word. In almost 30 years of knowing him, there's never been a harsh word between us, but there's been several disagreements. And we stand here agreeing to disagree. There's a huge difference between the two. And if we can all respect that, I think we'd be the better for it. So in terms of teaching life skills, good values, family values, values as an individual, in terms of teaching all of that, he was one of the greatest teachers you would ever find because he did it unassumingly, quietly, but unreservedly. He would get his message across. And for that, again, I am forever truly grateful. And I think we're all the better for it. So Chris went on running a business in his retirement, and I'm really happy that he spent a long retirement. He didn't have a short period of time. Like nowadays, you find somebody retiring from work and a few months later, they're struck down by illness and that's it. And they've worked their entire lives and they haven't enjoyed a day of it. They haven't been able to do the things that they couldn't do while they were working. And I'm glad that Chris, your dad, Tyron, Fiona, I'm glad that he got to do things that he otherwise couldn't do while he was teaching and working hard and, bringing home the bacon, so to speak. So in terms of that, I'm happy that he had a full retirement. And again, got involved in the Senior Citizens Club and in their activities. And as one of the speakers said, with great enthusiasm. And he was always enthusiastic. And I never knew Chris to complain of illness or hardship or pain. The one thing he complained about was it being cold in Howick, which it always was. And he always had his scarf, his hat, and his slippers on, and he was good to go, you know. You could go anywhere with him as long as he wasn't feeling cold. And that was funny. But he was never one to say no. He wasn't negative. Rather than being negative, his thought processes ran a lot deeper than ours would. He wouldn't think things through on the surface. He would think things through to the nth degree and what the very, very last consequence of that action would be, and come up with a plan that suited everyone around him, that went down well with everyone, and didn't insult anyone, didn't upset anyone. So he was very, very thoughtful in his processes. And for that, I admired him. Whereas some of us would just blurt things out and say things out in the open and not think about the very next consequence of that action or that statement that we make. He, on the other hand, took time. He took time to listen, as you said. He took time to understand. He took time to see people for who they were, no matter how different they were, no matter how different their backgrounds were. And this, when he was a teacher, was invaluable, because he would look at pupils in different lights, through different eyes, and see them for who they were, and made each person feel as important as the next. And therefore, he earned the respect of children and adults alike. And therefore, his family members today speak so highly of him, and will forever speak highly of him and treasure him as an individual, as a family member, as a father, an uncle, a grandfather, a friend. Treasure him for all those attributes that made him such a humble man, but yet such a leader in so many respects. He was never one to blow his own trumpet, but he certainly had qualities of a leader. And he broke barriers. He transcended certain rationale, certain reasoning. He never let things stand in his way. And for that, I am eternally happy that he lived, as I often say about people that I admire, he lived on his own terms, in his own time, at his own pace. But he shaped and molded the people around him, not to be him, but to take from him, from his experiences from way back in the 70s, to take from those experiences and his working career and his social career, to take from that what you may, and add it to your portfolio, add it to your character, and shape yourself to who you are going to become. And he could see before you could what you were going to become. So he would push you in the right direction. He never wanted people to be like him. He wanted people to learn from him. And that he has achieved in abundance. There are people around him that are great members of community nowadays. And Chris has helped shape them. So in terms of his family life, he had a full family life, and we dearly miss the late Rina, who was all of his life, besides you two sitting in front of us. And now his extended family, Kieran, Chantal, Tyler. And I'm just mentioning his immediate family, but all his relatives, his immediate family, his sisters-in-law, his brothers-in-law, his parents-in-law, he was true to all of them. And today we say farewell to a great, great friend, father, relative, a great gentleman. And we are definitely going to miss him tremendously. And I'm sorry that we didn't get to spend as much time with him recently, with him having moved to Pietermaritzburg. But he was never forgotten. He was never out of mind. He may have been out of sight, but never out of mind. And to you, Fiona, Tyron, Chantal, Kieran, and the rest of the family seated here, my best wishes, and on behalf of the rest of the family, our best wishes go out to you. And we hope that you get through this time peacefully and with dignity and with comfort. And please know that we are all there for you. And if there's anything that we can do to make this heavy burden lighter, please, we are there. Our doors are also open. Like Chris's doors were always open. And like he was a father figure to me, and he had his home open to me even when you guys were little kids. I felt really welcome. So you are all really and truly welcome in our homes as well, forever and ever. And we know that it's a long road ahead, but it doesn't have to be the bumpiest of roads. It can be as smooth as we allow it to be and as smooth as we all help make it. So let's pave that way forward and let's treasure the memory of your dad. And farewell, Chris. We hope that you are going to join the people that went before you, the people that cared dearly for you, and we hope that you're going to be in good hands. And until we meet again, farewell, my friend. Thank you. Forward and pay your last respects. We will leave the ashram in about 5 minutes, scheduled to leave here at 12:30 to proceed to the Cedar Ridge crematorium. And you are welcome to join at the crematorium as well. Thank you very much. And thank you again for being here.
Om Shanti, 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 Om. ये ध्वनि मंगल ध्वनि है, ओम शांति ओम, ओम शांति ओम शांति ओम शांति ओम शांति बड़ा है सुख कर ये मंत्र मन हर, ओम शांति ओम। ये ध्वनि मंगल ध्वनि है, ओम शांति ओम, ओम शांति ओम शांति ओम शांति ओम शांति शांति से हम गूंजाएं, आओ धरती व्योम, आओ धरती व्योम। ओम शांति ओम शांति ओम शांति से होता है विकृतियों का हो, विकृतियों का हो। ओम शांति ओम शांति ओम शांति की महिमा समझे दुनिया की हर कौम। ये ध्वनि मंगल ध्वनि है, ओम शांति ओम, ओम शांति ओम शांति शांति ओम शांति ओम ओम शांति करे जागृत आत्मा में जो ओम शांति ओम शांति ओम शांति से मिटे अज्ञान का तम तो अज्ञान का तम तो ओम शांति ओम शांति ओम शांति की शक्ति से पत्थर भी होता